Welcome to Pull the Pin Already, a place where average veterans come to share their views on the world we live in. We can't promise you like what we have to say, but we'll promise it's genuine. I'm Jim.
And I'm Mike.
It's time to pull the pin.
Let's get started.
All right, Mike, what do we got on topic today?
I think a good topic today, Jim, would be the police.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
That's pretty good topic, something we're both very familiar with.
Oh, yeah. Both in the civilian side and the military side, right?
Well, yeah. Do you want to start off maybe talking about the difference? Because if we do have a military audience out there that wants to know, I mean, I think there is a distinct difference between the two, but I think there's a lot of similarities as well.
Absolutely. I think one of the main differences is that chain of command. You know, you can have a private on patrol, but when it comes in faced with a non-commissioned officer or an officer for that matter, you know, you have to handle things a lot differently depending on the circumstance. You know what I mean? Because it's not the same as in civilian. Civilian, you really don't care who they are, you know, and I don't mean to say that lightly, but it's the fact of the matter. You don't really care about rank or what job they work or what position they have. You're out there to enforce the law. Whereas in the military side, it's a lot different. It really is. What do you think about that?
I also agree. I think there's another aspect to that too. I think chain of command is huge. I think for one, it's a controlled environment. I think people are less likely to do more crimes because they have something to lose directly. You know, they're not unemployed, so they just don't go out and commit crimes because they're unemployed. They actually have a career to worry about. And I also believe that having that chain of command gives us another resource. So I remember, you know, working, we had 1805s, which were civilian tickets, and 1408s, which were, you know, Army scratch paper.
Right.
But you send it to their chain of command so you can actually cite somebody on a 1408 and go to their chain of command.
Right.
Excuse me.
So whereas on the civilian side, it's just one citation. That's it.
Correct. Yeah. So I think you had a little more leeway in the military. You also had more of a controlled environment, so it was less likely to deal with crimes. But I don't think the crimes are much different. I believe they might have been less frequent, but much different. I don't think they were much different.
Right. I think it depends. It also depends on where you were when you perform those duties as well. Like if you go to some place like Bragg, Campbell, Hood, you know, places like that, or even some places overseas, it's no different than the civilian sector. Not at all.
Right. So in my time in Hawaii, just kidding. Actually, I did do law enforcement in Hawaii, so I could share a lot of that. I could tell you all about the police work down on Waikiki Beach. I could tell you all about that.
Anyway.
I mean, I'm just saying the police work we did was real, but
right.
Probably 80% of it was just posing for foreigners' photos.
Oh. Well, I would say like at Fort McPherson back when it was open. You know, that was like what we used to call garrison. It was a garrison command. You didn't really have any, you know, let's say the meat and potatoes of the Army there. You know, when I say that, I mean like the grunts, you know, 11 Bravos, you know, tankers and things like that. And jobs like that. So it was a different environment, you know, at places like Fort McPherson or those garrison posts. You mainly you talk about how many citations you wrote during a shift, you know, but you go to Hood, Bragg, Campbell, and places like that, you talk about what we used to call stick time, you know, the last fight you had to break up and, you know, other murders, rapes, assaults, things of that nature. So it's real life. And I hate to say that places like Fort McPherson wasn't real life, but you know what I mean. You know.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I have to acknowledge that Fort Hood, I mean, I think at the time I was there, well, I don't need to give numbers, but it was a very big community.
Oh, yeah.
So the chances of running into more crimes were definitely increased. It was like a mini city, really.
Yes, a city in its own right. And they had everything on Fort Hood. The murderers, the psychos, the rapists, everything. So it was like, you know, a regular little city, outside base.
Right. And I almost feel like a lot of people might be listening or watching. They probably already seen a lot of it in the news. I mean, Fort Hood's been in the news quite a bit. I don't know about the most recent one. I think was a missing soldier or something killed or something.
Yes,
but
yes.
That's not the first time Fort Hood's been in there. And I remember Just to give an example, like I said, I don't want to give out numbers or whatever, but I mean, maybe it doesn't matter, but I think that was the largest patrolling units I've ever had to deal with as a supervisor.
Right.
Like I've never had to supervise that many patrols or personnel in any base I've ever been at.
Right. And I can say the same thing for Fort Hood. You know, I can say the same exact thing. But one thing I wanted to touch on, the differences and similarities when you're talking about that chain of command. Now, as a regular old county police, county sheriff, or city police officer, when you cite someone, it doesn't go to their supervisor. You know what I mean? Whereas,
Right.
yeah, in the military, it goes straight to your job. And that's a big difference. And that's, to me, you can use that as and say it's a deterrent. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was trying to allude to earlier, is that is an extra layer that you don't have, the civilian policemen don't have. So
Right.
I think in just a summary, in my opinion, I think it was a lot easier as a policeman, a military policeman, than it was anytime I was a policeman.
Mm. You said it was a lot harder?
No, easier.
Oh, easier.
Yeah.
I would say the same thing. Yeah, I would say the same.
Yeah. Just in comparison.
Yeah, because I don't know, it was different, but the threat was still there, but it wasn't. I didn't feel like it was always there when I was a civilian. I mean, on military police. You know what I mean? But civilian police, oh yeah, the crosshairs are always on you.
Right.
That's a big difference.
Right. That's how I say, just the lifestyle alone. I mean, even as policeman, if you were lucky in the military to be in a what we call a garrison unit where all you did was law enforcement, you know, that's one thing. But most of the units I've been involved in, they rotate.
Right.
So you do go from garrison law enforcement work to field stuff to, you know, training and you know the like. So you actually had a break from it too. So it wasn't exactly like you had to just grind the whole time like normal policemen do out in the streets.
Right. So do you think it was a lot more or maybe equal per capita, right? With the complaints on like brutality and things of that nature?
No. And I think just anyone from the military would know that a lot of issues, lower level issues, are handled in-house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't have people doing drive-bys or shooting each other. I mean, obviously that happens, but it's not common. If people got beef, they take it to the pit or wherever
Right.
they go, you know, or there's other people around directly and responsible, your battle buddy or chain of command, that is going to keep you in check because it affects them.
Yeah, but where I was going with that was, like when we were at Fort Hood on patrol, you didn't really have complaints of military police brutality.
Oh, right. Oh, you're talking about from the aspect of from the civilian side.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
no. Well, because what would happen, probably you have a lot of soldiers that are just little, you know, they want to whine or say, I didn't do that, to contest it. But normally the chain of command, which is, you know, probably a lot smarter because they deal with these soldiers, they could probably tell right away if this soldier is probably pulling some fake stuff out. You know what I mean? I don't think I think they'd be able to spot some lie or complaint that wasn't legit.
Mm.
And I don't know, do you think that the military police, I mean, I've heard guys, do you think we had a bad rap as compared to the soldiers or sailors or whatever branch you're in as the police today do have with the public?
No. I've yet to hear anyone speak of military police the way they do. When they speak of civilian police officers negatively, I have yet to hear anyone speak of military police in a negative manner.
Yeah.
Or share stories where, you know, they have proof of military police brutality.
Right. I mean, I've heard many soldiers in my day, oh, you're an MP. Oh, you're an MP, you know, because they were doing bad and had an experience
Absolutely.
where they got right.
Yeah.
So I've heard that, but I've never heard quite like, you know, the police have to deal with citizens out here outside the military.
So why do you think that is, though? Do you think it's like the training is different, or maybe it's, you know, repercussion
Well,
if you do something wrong while on patrol, on duty?
I don't think it's as simple. Excuse me. I don't think it's as simple as just nailing it down to one thing. And like I alluded to earlier, yeah, I mean, you're in a controlled environment. We've all been trained to be soldiers. You know, you're trained to be disciplined. You're trained to follow orders. You're trained, you know, a lot of different ways. When you get down into the regular civilian society, I mean, you got people who they don't even have to be smart. I mean, like for their own sake, let alone for other people. So I think it's hard to police people who don't have a care in the world, where in the military, if you get to that point where you don't have a care in the world, there's so many other worse things you can do.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, when you said they don't even have to be smart, I thought you were speaking on to become a police officer.
No, but that's a good segue. Let's talk about that. Let's
Right.
talk about who becomes police officers. You know, how this all begins. Like, I don't know about your experience, and I hate labeling and putting people into categories and boxes, but I know they're
Labeling.
right,
Remember
right.
that.
Yeah,
Remember that.
well, that's going to come up someday. We got that on the board. Uh, but what I'm getting at is like you can tell the type of personalities of people who do become policemen. And let's be real, you know, not everybody joins the military for a reason. You
Right.
know, so not everybody will join police force for a reason.
Right.
So falling short of putting people in labels, you know, they're more type A personality people a little more aggressive, more, you know, or people with a bone to pick.
Right.
You know, I think they're not your common, you know, intelligent thinker that just, you know, moseys about his day. I think there's more to it. But I also have to say the requirements alone, they can be tough, I think, depending where you're at, because I don't think any police department's the same. But I think if
Right.
you want to give it a broad stroke across the board, I mean, I remember I was taking criminal justice classes, and then come to find out I only needed 60 credits.
Right.
Like they could have been in basket weaving or underwater snorkel searching
Yeah.
for sea dogs. I don't know, whatever
Right.
you do.
Right.
You know, but it had to be 60 credits. So right there, I was just like, so it doesn't have to do with anything to do with my job.
Right. It's just a piece of paper.
Right.
Right. And just to touch on that also, I always wondered why when I got out of the military, why I couldn't just walk into a civilian police job. I never understood why. Why do I have to go through the academy again? You know, I did basic training. I did the AIT. Maybe you should do a couple of classes on civilian law and, you know, maybe civilian police procedures or department procedures, have classes on that. And I never understood why I had to do it just like anyone off the street. I never understood that.
Right. And I agree, because I think that's one of the things I was going to talk about is training is I think I went through a police academy because I had to get certified before I got hired.
Right.
And then
Same here.
I went through a mini police academy with the department I was working with. And the mini one was exactly what you're talking about. They certified you on the equipment they used. They brushed you up on, you know, everything to do with the department side of it.
Right.
You know, and I do agree the police academy wasn't a waste of time because in the academy, I was required to learn about state laws and things
Right.
like that. So that was important. But, you know, the driving, I mean, I've done the driving, I've been to courses, I've done a lot of this stuff. I don't think that was as necessary,
Right.
nor was getting pepper sprayed again,
Let's not talk about it.
or OC. I don't think it's a lot different than pepper spray.
Yeah.
We'll save that. We'll pull that one aside for, well, that was not a requirement for me because I had already proved I've done it. But I didn't like the idea that they were going to make me do that again.
Oh,
So-
I had all the certificates from the military, even on the civilian side. And when I had a civilian job, security job at Fort McPherson, they made me, I had all my certificates and I still had to do it. And then when I got in the civilian police department, they said I still had to do it. And I said, that's enough. I just can't take it anymore.
There comes a point where it's purely for their pleasure.
That's all it is. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Because they say they want you to see how it feels. And I never understood how I have to see how it feels when I get sprayed. But when you train me on the aspartame, I don't have to see how that feels.
Or get shot. I mean,
Oh,
do I need to know what it's like to be shot? Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I do understand if they were using it as a like a weeding out, like a disqualification process. Because if you are somebody who gets sprayed and you start freaking out, I mean, you could become a liability. So
yeah, that's true.
I do kind of understand some portion of the training, but I also think that, you know, you being sprayed once should be enough to say, hey, you know, I've been sprayed, I survived, they didn't fire me.
And like you said, if you can prove it, you know, they should, depending on what's proof these days. But I know what you're referring to. You have the certificates and everything to show, just like I did. And if you can do that, then why do it again? It's a waste of time.
Right.
It's just like you said, it's for their pleasure, And
So
once
what?
they admitted that, I was okay with getting sprayed again. I said,
Right.
okay, let's have some fun with it,
Right.
But
It
don't
goes
tell me
back.
this is good training. No, it's not.
Good training for who?
Yes, exactly. Whoever's watching.
Yeah, good training for you to not
Yeah,
to laugh. That one of those try not to laugh videos, right?
yeah. It's just like getting tased. Don't
Right.
understand it.
I've
Same thing.
never I've never been tased, thank God.
Mm.
I did accidentally touch an electric fence at a horse farm. Probably not the same, but let me tell you, it still wasn't enjoyable.
Let's say I've never touched an electrical fence at a horse farm, so I can't compare.
Well, I'm not a complete idiot. I was actually trying to pet a horse. I think he baited me in. I think it was for his pleasure.
Yes. You had a couple more down the road with a video.
Exactly.
Cell phone, yeah.
So let's stay on the topic of training. Just give me an opinion. You think I know training can be different anywhere. You think was training adequate for you, or was it not?
Oh, yes, it was. Which one? Which one?
Uh, any part of it you share?
No, the military or civilian?
Uh, well, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, well, why don't
Yeah.
you start with the military? It was military.
Military, I think it was, and I'm glad that we got a lot of the physical stuff out of the way, so you can just focus on the classroom portion, you know. But for the civilian, there was none of that physical fitness stuff. So
Right, right.
you had to pass a test with the department, and once you pass that, that was it. But for the classroom portion, like you said, you get to learn the state law, state procedures, crimes and all of that. But when you come back to the department, then while you're on what we used to call the FTO,
Yeah,
FTOs train you on all the department procedures and everything.
yeah. I was going to say, I think if I look at it as a whole, military police training, I kind of thought that was a joke, but I think it was appropriate for the level we were going into and
Yeah.
the environment we were policing. When I look at the civilian police training, if it wasn't for FTO, I would say it was inadequate. But I
Sure.
think the FTO added a lot because I don't know about your FTO, but mine was like a year. I mean, and
Yeah.
you take one quarter where you just kind of observe, and it progresses from there till the very last quarter of the year. You're doing it all, and you have a civilian or a policeman in civilian clothing actually observing you.
Oh, okay.
So that was my experience in FTO, and I thought that was brilliantly run, very effective, and they were always there to assist me and debrief me after I'd been on a call or did something.
Right.
So I thought it was really a year's worth of training, and I thought that was exceptional.
Well, mine was, I want to say, somewhere between it was like 3 to 5 months. And I thought it was very good. Very good. Not so big department. And we had 3 phases, we used to call it you crawl, you walk, and then you're running. And we didn't have the civilian clothes officer or anything like that. We had,
Right.
regular patrolmen. The FDOs did the training, and all 3 of mine, they were different, and they had different aspects of the doing patrol that they all loved, and it was all different. So mine was excellent.
Yeah,
And
and I
that's
think
something I didn't get in the military.
right, and I think one of the good things about my FTO experience, the field training officer experience part of it, was that I rotated. I didn't stay with the same guy the whole year.
Right.
It was,
Right.
and that gave me a chance to see the different personalities and the different approaches to police work. And
Yep.
as we're talking about that, it kind of leads into one of the things I want to discuss about the people. Like, I know I don't want to narrow them down into categories, but I mean, I went from having former military guy that was gung-ho and everything was about the breaking down the doors to basically what I called the mega nerd who
Mhm.
just did, stuff that I didn't understand half the time, but I'm sure he had a place in a way.
Right.
So I think that the personnel on the police force that I've encountered varied drastically.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I think they all brought something different. But there was a sense of community, like they always talk about the blue line and all that stuff.
Right.
But I feel like there was still a lot of diversity and diversity in all ways,
Yeah.
of officers, which is why I kind of, I get a little I get a little defensive of officers when we talk about them and how everybody's trying to wrap them all into one thing. I just don't believe that's possible or true.
Anytime you paint any group of people with a broad brush, to me, based on the actions of a few, it's wrong. It's
Correct.
wrong. I don't want to. This is probably a topic for another show, but I can acknowledge when someone, something that I learned when I was in civilian academy, right? The guy, he always said, I don't care what you do when you're out there. And he would always hold up his badge. He said, don't embarrass the badge.
Right.
You know, and that's what that was his, I mean, that was his motto, right? And he didn't even know, but we always walked around and say, hey, don't embarrass the badge when you go out there after the academy, you know, and I stick with it. And how many years ago was that?
Right.
You know, that's why when I see things and from start to finish, you know, not a little 4-second snippet, when I see things from start to finish, I can say, yeah, he embarrassing the badge right there. He had, or she, or whatever. It's an embarrassment to the badge. I can acknowledge those who have done wrong, you know, and that to me is the same thing that I wish, you know, maybe he'll join one day. But one thing he used to say is, if you don't acknowledge those who have done wrong, then we're a part of the problem.
Correct.
Don't let that embarrassment of the badge define the badge. And it's sad to say that that's what's going on right now.
Well, and I think there is something to say, just to play devil's advocate for a second. I think there's something to say that there is a general police culture. I don't think it's fair to say all policemen are the same, but I think as Americans, we can really be real with ourselves and say there are certain cultures about things. You know what I mean? There's cultures about any environment.
Right.
And it's really what the masses kind of take as the norm.
Yeah.
And that's the way I look at it. And I think police culture does have a lot more flaws than police people, men or women. You know, I think the culture has some things that really do need to be worked on. And I'll tell you that from experience. Like the first department that I went to work for, I really wanted to work there. And I was doing a tour of the place, and I don't know if I've told this story or not, but I actually witnessed these two guys go into a cell, and because this lady was screaming, she was already handcuffed. And I don't know what they did exactly. I think I've already been, but just the way they were handling her, I was like, it really wasn't necessary. But there were two officers who thought that that was okay. Now, I don't have the full story, so really I'm being just as judgmental as you're saying I shouldn't. Right. But she was clearly in cuffs or something. She was not flailing her arms about. So even if they were going to hold her down and put, you know, a spit thing or whatever, I don't know what they did in that police department. But I just felt like everybody kind of just looked away, or it was something. I'm doing a tour. I mean, you'd think that maybe it wasn't bad. Maybe they didn't worry about it because it wasn't bad. But I'm just saying my perception, it didn't sit well. I actually didn't go on to work for that department.
Oh, okay. That's
because
good.
of that. Because I felt the culture was a little bit too lax.
And back in my time, I wanted to go, and I was all going to Atlanta. I wanted to be on APD. That was it. Nothing else. Bam. Had a friend of mine who worked on it, APD, and said, what the hell is your problem? Stay away.
Right.
That's literally what he told me. He said, hey, man, you need to go to one of the smaller departments. You'll learn a lot more. You know, your equipment will be better. So, you know, he did me a solid. And next thing you know, I ended up at a smaller department, and it was excellent.
Well, I tell you, just to tie it in, like with the culture, what I'm saying is, and I think it's one of the dynamics we see in today, is you can have a culture, even if it's in your department small, you can have a culture that's not very harmful. But you get into a bigger department, you're more likely going to run into more bad cops. You're more likely going to run into some extended culture of police work that's probably going to lead to even corruption. And I'm not going to lie, I don't know these departments personally, but when you look at the NYPD, Chicago Police Department, all these major cities, I don't find it far-fetched for there to be a lot of deep-rooted corruption in there. And
me neither.
They're embarrassing the badge is bottom line. They are embarrassing the badge. And I think to be a part of a culture that's so big like that, you can't be a good guy and say something, because you'll get hazed. You'll get, you know, somebody won't show up when you need the backup. And I think it's a dangerous place for a lot.
That's a part of that culture.
So coming to that realization, I can understand some of the outrage against policemen, but I just think it's very unfair to paint them all the same, because there's a lot of policemen who aren't a part of that culture and don't approve.
And those are the good ones.
Right.
And man, this is gonna sound so bad. Those are the good ones. Those are the great ones. But the better ones are the ones, to me, who speak out. And recently we had a lot of those personnel just speaking out about things that were happening in our country in certain departments and everything. And I thought that was a good thing. We need more of it. Don't embarrass the badge and don't stand for it.
Right.
And then people will believe in the police and they won't throw out, oh, here we go again, that blue line, they taking care of each other, and it's no different to me than if, well, God, this is gonna sound real bad. But,
Two in one show. Got it.
Yeah, I know, right? This is gonna sound real bad, but you have whoever's in office, whoever the president is, whoever has the office. If that president does something wrong, people in that party just keep their mouth shut, right? They see no wrong in their own party. So it's like that with in that police culture. You see no wrong within your own culture, your own department. And to me, you need to acknowledge it, man. You have to, if we're going to move forward together.
Well, I think it goes deeper than that. And I'm glad you brought up the analogy of the parties and stuff like that. I think it goes deeper than that, because if you look at those parties as well as the police force, they've got something to lose. Unlike the military, we're PCSing, we're changing duty stations often. So you don't really have to support the people who are doing the wrong thing. But if you say you live in Chicago, you're diehard Chicago, you don't want to leave, you're not going to transfer. I mean, imagine having to come to work every day, knowing there's so much going on. And the moment you say something, you could be set up. You could be set up, fired, your life ruined. So I'm not giving these guys an out, because I still think the right thing to do is always the right thing to do.
Right.
But I am saying it's more complicated, because people on the outside want to look in and say, oh, why didn't you just tell on them if it was bad?
Yeah.
And I do. I try to look at it from a perspective of, I try to err on doing the right thing all the time. I mean, I always do. But sometimes you have to step back and say, what's at stake for me when I do this?
Right.
So that's where I think it comes into play, where you need a good department, or you need a good system where they can do maybe an anonymous complaint, or something where they're making less risk, but they're actually doing something.
Right. And that's why I'm a staunch supporter of dash cams, body cams, and all of that, because that, to me, it has saved more officers than can help convict some or get them terminated.
Oh, I agree.
Whatever. Yeah,
I agree. And I don't know if you've seen the latest technology they're trying out, but they have gun cams now. Cameras on the guns. Yes.
Wow.
Yep. I saw a video.
I mean, I've seen that, but not on departments.
Oh, they have departments right now trying them out. And I think that'll resolve a lot of issues, because I'm going to love to spend some time maybe in the future, picking apart some of these police shootings, and especially the ones that make media and cause uproar, because I think a lot of people don't understand what it takes to be a policeman. I really think people can't relate.
No.
I mean, they have a standard of a policeman that they don't even hold for their own doctors. And doctors kill a lot of people through practice.
Well, yeah, that's why, they have medical insurance.
Right. But I'm saying is that if you go to your doctor and he suggests a surgery, and in the middle of that surgery, something goes wrong, whether it's his fault or not, I mean, you're dead. You know what I mean? We don't have riots and uprising against doctors.
Right, but then but you do have the opportunity for a malpractice lawsuit.
Well, I think that's a misunderstanding too, because because if a policeman breaks the law, you can sue him as well. There is no protection. Cops don't just have a blanket immunity. That's not true.
Understood.
That's what the perception people have out there, is that the cops just have this blanket immunity. It's never been that way. If they violate rules, regulations, policies, or the Constitution, I mean, that you can sue them, because that's a violation. They're only protected when they're doing their duties in good faith.
You really believe that?
Well, that goes back to the culture thing. Okay. Now, there may be some discrepancy in the culture, but if you want to talk about on the books, legally, black and white, written, no questions asked, they aren't protected. So this whole blanket immunity stuff.
Well, yeah, then we get into, did they do something wrong that's against the law or against department policy, or just you know,
Bad
morally,
judgment.
come on, yeah, it's bad judgment. But I'm not even gonna say it's bad judgment. It's like it's morally wrong what they did, right?
Sure.
But then some departments come back and say, well, you know, they upheld the law, they followed our department policy, and I'm like, wow, you need to relook your policy then,
Sure, and then
you
maybe
know?
that's the case. Like,
Yeah,
let me tell you, I may be giving away where I used to work, but you know, they're complaining about tasers and things like that. Do you know one of the pieces of equipment we carried?
what's that?
Nunchucks. Yes,
What?
nunchucks. You know, karate. Yes, and let me tell you something. Before you make those ugly faces, I mean, nobody listening can see that ugly face. They were very effective, very effective.
Really?
Yes, and the guy who created them worked on our department. That's how we use them. But they were very good for holds and twisting and strikes if you needed them, but you didn't need them for strikes often.
Right.
So my point I'm getting at is heck, I don't even know what my point was getting at. I'm so excited telling about this story because I thought it was the coolest thing in the world being a policeman carrying nunchucks.
I've never seen that. Wow.
Oh yeah, I could show you. But
Yeah.
let's get back to the training, the job, you know, because obviously we had to train on that. So you
Right.
take a thing like a nunchuck, but what every cop uses is a gun, right? Every cop has a gun.
Yep.
Now we've had plenty of training in the military. Policemen, we've been to the range qualifying several times, and I can tell you there are some holes in the gaps too. And I don't want to pick out any specific gender, but sometimes some things are overlooked to promote advancement.
Yes.
So if you want to talk about training, there's holes all through the training. But overall, I can honestly say that I know how to use my weapon. I know how to use it properly. I think the problem starts to come in when you talk about when to use your weapon.
Exactly. I think one thing about the difference, and I might be a little dated here, but the difference with the military is if you pull it, trust me, there's no such thing as a show of force, and I see that way too often in the civilian sector. You know, if you pull your weapon as a military police, yeah, it's a better chance you're going to pull the trigger as well. And I think that's one thing. Now, if you're talking about like with the training, as far as like qualification, I can't stand it as the military, within the military, because anytime you had, I don't know if you experienced it, having to draw your weapon, but every time I did, my heart rate was up, you know, I was nervous, but I was trained in that type of environment, so I knew how to use my weapon in that
Right.
instance.
Right.
You know,
And let's talk about that for a second, because I think you know, a lot of policemen already live stressful lives. I mean, it's well, every district's different. I mean, I think we already
Yeah.
can recognize that the guys ready to retire, they go work in the rich neighborhoods where nothing ever happens, you know, and then the new guys always get the real rough neighborhoods.
right.
So, but when you're in that environment constantly, you're always on the guard. I mean, we know this from military experience.
Yeah.
You encounter something that looks similar to what you've experienced, which we would call profiling. Don't confuse that with racial profiling. It's called profiling because we're
Right.
comparing it to scenarios that have been known to have similar outcomes.
Right.
So when you run into this scenario, you're already on high alert. You're pumped. You're ready to go. You really don't know what's going to happen. So when people make sudden moves or do things that just don't look right, or even resist arrest, how do you consciously think you're going to respond with good training or not in that split second where you think your life is in danger?
Mm. That's where training comes in.
Well, I agree, but like I
Yeah.
said, even though, and I'll tell you, even during training, a good example of this is thing called sympathetic fire. I'm sure you know what that is, right?
No, I never heard that before. Please
Okay.
do
All
tell.
right. Well, I know you're being funny, but I'm gonna explain it anyway for anyone who hasn't heard of it before.
That's
So,
why I said that.
yeah, I know, that's good. But anyway, so for example, like we trained in my department, we had excellent training. We would do a police car stop with 2 patrolmen, and we would get out of the car, each in our own door, each on our own side, and there would be a person laying behind something who would draw their weapon out from the side. Now, it was designed intentionally so that only one officer can see the person at a time.
Mm.
So what we did in our training, we were required to yell gun, we would draw, and return fire or whatever the situation required. Obviously, if it's a gun pointing at you, you don't have time to say, drop your gun. You don't have, any of
Right.
that stuff. So we would do that. But the key would be to watch the passenger. And what would happen a lot of times, and it's called sympathetic fire, is the passenger would never see the gun, but would hear his own guy yelling gun and shooting. He would also engage at something he didn't even see. Now, that's a psychological thing. I'm not a psychiatrist or a sociologist or whatever those fancy names are, but I witnessed it firsthand. I literally knew what I was supposed to do, what I was not supposed to do. I was only to fire if I saw the gun, and I fired. And I just said, whoa, what did I do? And this is also how you end up with 50 shots in one person.
Yeah.
So I think people, they don't have a realistic view of what actually happens.
Now, when you say people, you're talking about?
I'm talking about the general public who are not policemen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So when you see those 50 shots, do you just blame that on training, or?
I think that's human behavior. I don't think any amount of training is going to instill that discipline unless you do it constantly. And even then, you got to be put in real scenarios, because let's acknowledge the factor that we can't identify how you feel. Right. You as a policeman, you can be 30 years on the job and know everything in the world, walk into a situation and say, this guy, you could profile a guy and say, he's not going to shoot me. But you're right, brand new off the block and, barely got your cherry pulled there, and you're going to walk into a scenario, you're going to see things totally different. I can't tell. Yeah. You could be a lot more scared or unsure because you don't have the experience.
Yeah, you should be.
Nobody can teach experience.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of factors, and I think it's very unfair to judge people you don't walk in their shoes. And I think it's been proven. I think they brought a lot of these leaders, so-called leaders, into those firearm training simulators.
Yeah.
And they put them in scenarios, and these people have failed miserably to get a better understanding. But I think the general public needs to understand that.
Well, yeah, but as a former police officer, just using that one scenario, 50 shots in one person, sorry.
Well, no. I don't think those 50 come from one person.
No, I mean, it's like 5 or 6 officers.
But that's what I'm saying. So the sympathetic fire, if everyone shot 5 shots, and you and I know, I don't care, military not, nobody's counting rounds.
Oh, no.
No, but you fire until the threat is no longer a threat. You don't shoot to kill. And let me ask you this, just for the record, to get it put out there. In your military experience and your police experience, have you ever in your life met anybody who said, I'm going to go out and shoot me somebody today?
Someone who's on the job?
Yeah, some policemen or military policemen say, I'm going to go out and shoot somebody today.
No.
Never. Did you ever assume that maybe they wanted to?
Shoot someone? No.
Yeah, neither have I. I mean, the point I'm trying to get across is when I hear people say that the cops are out killing and murdering, it's nonsense. I don't think I've ever met one. Now, could it be true somewhere? Yeah, maybe. I don't know how somebody escapes through the force that long, that far with a vendetta like that. But it's unreal. And I just don't think it's a good conversation starter to start that.
Well, yeah, it's probably not a good conversation starter, but I mean, just because we've never witnessed that, there has been cases where people said they're going to get somebody today, or a certain demographic of a person today.
Sure.
Via email and text messages after the fact.
Sure. I mean, I would be curious. I'd be curious still, like you said, you're a man of full stories. I'd be curious to see what all of that entailed. Like it could be, you could take a racist person who makes comments like that all the time and then just happen to get into a shootout. That doesn't mean you went out to shoot somebody.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I would still want to see all the details. What my point I'm getting at is that the percentage is so small that to be your loudest argument is really foolish of you. You just sound, not you directly, anyone who's using that argument, it would be foolish to start, they're out there murdering. No, murder requires intent. And I have never seen that.
So you're basing that off of your experience?
I'm basing it off basically.
Your experience.
Right.
During your experience, you've never witnessed anyone who said, I'm going to shoot someone.
Sure. And that does leave open doors that it is possible. And even
Yeah.
like I said earlier, so this is not a scapegoat. I'm not saying that it's not there. I'm just saying it's not practical. I'm saying it's a small percentage. Even if you're in a corrupt place like Chicago, you can easily put that investigation together and
Right.
know that, hey, this guy makes a lot of comments. Hey, this guy shoots a lot of people. It wouldn't take you long to figure out this is a problem.
Right. Or this guy, or this person made a lot of these type comments, and next thing you know, he did that. So,
Right.
yeah.
I think it wouldn't take long. Now you can get into another level of whether they figure it out and cover it up or not. That's a whole different topic. We
Yeah, that's about culture and everything. What we were
yeah.
just touching on. Yeah.
We've been going down this police hole. We can do this, and we're actually going to try to bring this back a couple more segments because we got a lot of stuff to talk about here with police work. So I'm going to go ahead and initiate a little pull the pin here. Otherwise, we could talk for hours, and I don't think people want to listen to us for hours. Maybe
I think they do.
Hopefully they do, right? But if they get to see you, they can stare at you for hours. That's great.
Oh, then you'll cut the time in half then.
So let's go ahead and do that. Let's move on to our favorite segment that we have the namesake for, and it's called Pull the Pin Already. And basically what it is basically we pick out something that we feel just annoys us just in the general public population or however you want to label that. Even though I don't
There's
like
that
labels.
word again.
Even though I don't like labels, I'm going to label it.
Yeah.
Just for lack of better words, basically we're going to pick something out and share with you something we want to pull a pin on. Do you want to go ahead and start us? Or
You can go ahead and get started, John.
all right, mine today is a pet peeve of mine that you're probably going to disagree with. And I even probably almost disagree with it as well from one angle, but it really annoys me. That's why I want to put it here. It's called doctor. And I did talk about doctors earlier in the show, but doctor. Now, I do understand when you go to college and you work really hard and you get your doctorate degree, that somehow being called doctor makes you feel successful and appreciated and self-loathing and all the other bad things I'm going to follow up with this. But unfortunately, in our culture, our society, we have another word for doctor, and that's somebody who knows what the heck they're doing in the medical field. So if I'm sitting in a car accident and I say, oh my God, is anybody a doctor? And you stand up and say, yes, I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. Well, I don't know what I'm doing here. What do you mean you're a doctor? Oh no, I got my doctorate degree. I'm a doctor. Oh my God, people, please stop. Please. I don't care that you got your doctorate degree. I don't walk around with an associate's degree saying, I'm an associate or I'm a master's. I don't do it. Okay, congratulations. Let me speak for the entire population. Congratulations. Now, please stop. Okay, because when I want a doctor, I want it to be a medical professional. All right, sorry, that was a little too long.
No, you're good. You're good. Ooh, you got kind of heated there, Jim.
Sorry.
You okay?
I've experienced it. I've experienced it in the education world mostly.
Right.
And I don't look at these people and say, wow, you must be really good for my kids. I don't do it. I don't say, wow, you must really know how to raise children or run a school. No, that's not what makes me think you're a good superintendent or whatever they're calling them these days.
Superintendent,
principals, whatever they call them.
Okay. Wow. Well, I disagree with you.
I'm sure you will. Thank you.
Only because you said I would, really. But no, I was thinking about a good friend of mine, and I always say she's a fake doctor. You know, it is. Oh man, if she could, she would kill me. She would.
Okay, well, hopefully she sees this and you're saved.
Yeah. Well, just bring it back on topic. Mine, Jim, today is going to be a word you used a couple of times during this show: labels. I can't take it, man. Labels. No matter. I'm trying to think of an instance where the label is a positive in this day in America. You know, the label that the masses are gonna call someone or some group of people. Tell me where it's a positive. You know, and you really don't have it. You don't, and I can't stand it. I don't care if it's a religious label. I can't think of any right now. But anyway, if it's a political one, there's too many. We don't need to name them, okay? Or just regular everyday life, any type of label you can come up with. I can't stand it. We need to stop it, and I know it's not going to stop. I'm guilty of it, but I'll be the first one. Michael Jackson said it best. I'm going to start with the man in the mirror, or the man on the other side of this webcam here. Okay, so pull the pin on it. All right, all the labels you can think of, put them in a box, pull the pin, and that's me right there.
Well, I got to tell you, Mike, I have to tell you,
Uh-oh.
if there were no labels in Walmart, I'd have no idea what I was buying or how much it would cost.
I can't stand them, man.
Well,
I can't stand those labels.
I understand. And I honestly think we can have a whole segment on labels. So I'm not going to badger too much, but I know where you're going. So we will definitely stop labeling people who get doctorate degrees as doctors.
How did I know you were going to do that?
Either way, that is all the time we have for today. So
All right.
Thanks for joining us here at Pull the Pin already. We hope you had as much fun as we did. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, or whatever else you want to do. Most importantly, leave a comment, preferably a nice one, but we appreciate anyone. And let us know how you feel. Until next time, Godspeed.
And pull the pin.